Are we ready to start?
Yep, I have 7.
Okay. All right. I'd like to welcome you to this evening's Van Buren School District Board of Education meeting. It is being held virtual, and our meeting has been changed to a virtual meeting as stated on our agenda. It's due to Governor Whitmer's Executive Order 2020-154, the alternative means to conduct government business during the COVID-19 pandemic, and Executive Order 2020-160, which limits statewide indoor gatherings to 10 people or less. This is our regular meeting, and as we also note each meeting when we have this, it's also printed on our agenda, that this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purposes of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There are times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in items 4 and 8. And for our virtual meeting, there's a button labeled Q&A on your Zoom meeting. And those, you can put your any questions or comments, use that button. You can enter them right now, but please remember to include your full name, your first and last name, your role, if you're an employee or a parent or a community member or whatever, and your email address so we can get back with you with the answers. This is the same type of information that we would require you if you were speaking at an in-person meeting. But since we're virtual, we're asking for your email address and then we can correspond with you as such. And at this time, you can enter both agenda and non-agenda items. So that way then you can get them typed in now and then we'll sort them when it gets to that point on the agenda. Our board president, Amy Pierce, is on our Zoom meeting with us tonight, but she's traveling, so she's driving. So to keep her safe, we're letting her just focus on listening and voting when the time comes for any agenda item that we might have to vote on, which would really be only our consent agenda. Mm-hmm. All right, so all of those details being taken care of, we will now call the meeting to order and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm not sure who has a flag.
There's one.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Also, this evening, just to allow the public more time to type, since they have to type in their Q&As, I would like to recommend that we move agenda item number 4, which is the question and comments from the audience. Move that to after item number 6. So if that's okay with everyone, can I have a, well, I guess we need to do our roll call first, don't we?
If that's a motion, I'll support it.
All right. Well, we'll see who's here first, and then we'll start with making motions. All right, Ms. Garrick.
Ms. Featheringill.
I am here.
Ms. Garrick here. Mr. Hawkins.
And Mr. Hawkins said he could not be here this evening. He is on vacation somewhere, not Zooming.
Mr. Johnston.
Good for him.
Here.
Ms. Owen.
Here.
Ms. Pierce.
Here.
Ms. Pinter.
Here.
All right. So now, as we talked about, moving the agenda item, and so Mr. Johnston, I don't know if you still want to make that motion.
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Do we have a support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Johnston, supported by Ms. Owen, to amend the agenda to move item number 4, our questions and comments from the audience, to after item number 6. Now we'll have a vote. So Ms. Garrick.
Ms. Garrett, yes. Mr. Hawkins? Oh, sorry. Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Owen?
Yes.
Ms. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Pinter?
Yes.
Ms. Featheringale?
Yes. And thank you also, Ms. Garrick, for swapping up our voting order so that, you know, I don't always have to be first. The only problem with me not always being first is then I have to pay more attention because then I have to like listen to who's, you know, the order that you're doing it in. So the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. And the consent agenda tonight includes the approval of minutes from our previous meetings, the August 10th, 2020, our regular meeting, the August 13th, our special meeting, human resources matters. And we did have a new sheet that came out this afternoon for our instructional staff. And then changes in non-instructional staff, and then our checks payable. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Do we have support?
Support.
And we have a motion by Mr. Johnston and supported by Ms. Pinter to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Garrick?
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Ms. Owen?
Yes.
Ms. Pierce?
Yes.
Ms. Pinter?
Yes.
Ms. Featheringale?
Yes.
Ms. Garrick, yes.
Thank you. And we did not have any separate check approvals during our last meeting, so we can skip item number 6. So now we're to item number 4, out of order, which is our questions and comments from the audience.
Yeah, so far we have 2 there. So just as a reminder, we will read these, and then there's emails here, so I will get back with the people via email. All right, the first one's from Kristen Bellany. She's a teacher and community member. That's in regards to cleaning and sanitizing procedures, please answer the following. Middle school and high school classrooms must be cleaned and sanitized in between each class. Will this be done by custodial staff, or you'll be asking teachers and or students to do this? If teachers are required to clean, who will supervise the students in the hall? Can all desks, chairs, and frequently touched surfaces be adequately cleaned in 5 minutes of passing time? And in the elementary schools, cleaning and sanitizing must be completed every 4 hours. Is it safe for children to be in the classroom while this is being done? If not, where will they go? Again, will custodial staff be completing this task, or will you be asking teachers and or students to clean? All right, get back with Ms. Bellany on those. And then we have a question from Mrs. Mears. She has children at the middle school and at the high school. So when will the schedule of classes be made available for the in-person learning at children's school, so middle school and high school? So they're both working on them. I know that I think the middle school is a little farther than high school. As you can imagine, high school scheduling right now, working on 2 different schedules is difficult. So they're working on those. I'm guessing hopefully by next week, I would hope that we have those pretty close to being done for the in-person kids. The in-person is getting done first, and then they're working on the remote. So hopefully we'll have those soon. You will hear from your building principals on both of those. I don't.
And then
All
your answer to Ms. Bellany, will that be something that you'll put on our frequently asked questions as well?
I think it is already in our frequently asked questions. Yep. But I'll answer her, and if it is, I'll direct her to that document as well.
Okay.
If it's not on there, I'm 90% sure it's already on there.
Okay.
If it isn't, I will make sure it is on there.
All right. I apologize. I have not read all the frequently asked questions and the answers.
Right. It's pretty long. Like those are our only 2 we have.
Okay. All right. And then I forgot, though, we did have some changes in our instructional staff. And so I don't know, Mr. Medune. That's probably why I forgot, because you turned your video off, so I couldn't see you, to know if you wanted to make any comments on our changes. I know we have a couple people who are retiring, and some of them after many years of service. So we probably should thank them for their service. And
Yep.
then we're making some other changes, recalling people back. So I'll let you share that.
Well, we'll talk about the people that are being called back first. We had, because of our changes that we're making with remote learning and in-person learning, and we kind of discovered that we needed to bring back some teachers that we had laid off earlier. So let me see. So in that vein, I lost my camera for a minute. Okay.
You're good. Let me see.
So in that vein, I have it now. We brought back Miss Larry Cook to Belleville High School. We brought back Miss Shanna Johnson to Belleville High School. We were able to bring back to the elementary world. We were able to bring back Anna Abulov, Ashley Needard, and we were able to bring back Amanda Mitchell. I've already contacted them and talked to them. We're happy to have them back, and we're ready to get going. Tomorrow school starts, or the PD starts, and we hope everyone is there for that.
The first one you mentioned, your audio did go out at the very beginning. The first one you mentioned was Mr. Cook at the high school.
Yes, Mr. Larry Cook. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. I was going to mention that as well, but that's good.
Yeah.
And we had several retirements we would like to talk about. Spring Jackson, who retired from Rossville Elementary after 25 years of service to Van Buren Public Schools. And we also had Jill Atchley, who was at Tyler Elementary, who provided the district with 26 years of service. We would like to thank both of them for their long years of service to Van Buren Public Schools.
Both are big losses. Both really understand teaching and learning, and they really supported kids and supported our teachers for a long time. So big losses.
Yes, very much so.
And we also at the high school lost Mr. Zach Murray, who he got a job opportunity back in the district that he actually went to and lives in. And so he was here for 3.5 years at Belleville High School, and we wish him well and in his future endeavors.
Yep. You can't fault anybody for wanting to go back home.
Right.
That's always a good thing. And we also
He did a nice job for us too.
I'm sorry?
He did a nice job for us while he was here too.
Then we also, it looks like we had a driver that was retiring, a couple drivers that were retiring as well.
Let me see which ones we have on that.
Non-instructional world.
Yep, we had Gloria Neely.
Yep.
She was here for 14 years, retired, and Cheryl Campbell, 23 years. Okay. Both again, that's a hard job. We have wonderful drivers. They love their job, and we're happy somebody really loves doing that job, because it's a hard job. And they really bond with those kids, and the first person they see in the morning, and they set the stage for those kids every day. Can't thank them enough. Getting our kids here safe every day.
And it is amazing when you go to transportation, you talk to the drivers, and they've been running the routes, and you can watch them just spit out the names of all the kids where they live. I mean, it is really amazing to sit there and watch the transportation. They have their own little just communication. It's really incredible to watch them interact with the kids and the things they do.
Yeah.
So,
They talk about where they live. They talk about, they used to drive their parents. It's pretty great. Great group.
So thank you. All right, now we're on to administrative item 7A, which is our MASB, which is our Michigan Association of School Boards Summer Institute information. And so for this piece, it's so important to us to be trained as school board members, to be an effective school board member so we can make decisions for students and the community. The MASB, which I said was the Michigan Association of School Boards, has a Certified Board Member Awards, which is the CBA program, that it offers to school board members. There are many different levels of certification that are available. And Ms. Owen and I were able to attend some classes at the Summer Institute that was held virtually August 14th through the 16th. Ms. Owen is going to share a summary of the class that we both attended, and then I'm going to give a brief summary of the other classes that I attended. This reporting is in compliance with our board operating procedures that says when you go to a conference, we're supposed to come back and share tidbits of information with the rest of the board. So, Ms. Owen?
Okay, the class that both Susan and I attended was called the Return Back to School in the era of COVID-19. And there were 3 superintendents who were there who did the panel discussion. One was Brian Davis of Holland. He's been superintendent for 13 years. David Hornak of Holt, Michigan. He's been superintendent for 6 years. And Angie MacArthur of Eastern Upper Peninsula ISD. And this is her first year as superintendent. And so they asked from the beginning of COVID, when the schools were let out in the spring, how was it that they communicated with their stakeholders? And Brian, who was superintendent of Holland, said that they sent letters in Spanish because they had a lot of Spanish-speaking students. So they did that. They created hotlines for the return to school plans, which they brought back furloughed teachers to man the hotlines. And they did, some of their hotlines were technology, general medical questions, that sort of nature. They had town hall meetings, they sent emails, they sent texts, they sent mailings. He said any way that he could is how he communicated with the stakeholders, with parents. And all of the questions that were asked on the hotlines were then put on the website under their frequently asked questions. And all of this began as soon as the schools were closed in the spring. And Angie, who is the UP superintendent, they have 19 districts. So some of the kids, she said, are on the bus for an hour and a half one way. So
your audio, Kelly.
email, Facebook, text, mailings, and town hall meetings and parking lots, since they were so spread out. And David from Holt said that they did podcasts, email, and town hall meetings. And then they were asked the question, how are you going from phase to phase? And Brian from Holland said that he was using science. He's listening to those in the know. He's listening to the doctors and he's looking at the whole picture, and he's trying to be very realistic and flexible. Angie in the UP said that they are in phase 5 right now. So, but they're filling out procedures as if they're in phase 4. So in case they have to go back, that they're ready to. And David from Holt said that they are starting remotely and they're working on a plan to go back in person. And until that plan is done, then they will be staying remotely. That was it. There's about we were online for 3 hours. So it was really, really informational. It was a great, great class to take. All 3 of them were very, very good speakers, but the one I was most impressed with was Brian. He was 13 years as superintendent. He was solid. So I guess that's it. I wish that we had this class like a month ago instead of a week ago, you know, because it was just so informational, but I really enjoyed it. So that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Was very good. Was very good. Well, I attended several classes during the Institute weekend, and they were very informative, and I would recommend any of the classes that I took to all of you that want to take it. I'm sharing just a brief overview because each of the classes were 3 hours long, so obviously I'm not going to tell you in depth what happened because we would be here all night and nobody wants to do that. So just going to give you a high-level overview. First class I took was CBA 227, which was ethical challenges. They started out telling us there are 4 ethical imperatives: moral, legal, pragmatic, perceptual. So most important thing is the need to be trustworthy. And then I thought this was interesting too. It's important to treat our employees fairly to make sure that the employees then act ethically. If we explain the reasons for things, they're more likely to be ethical. If they're completely exhausted, they're more likely to be unethical. Also, it's important to lead by example. So if our leaders are doing things ethically, then our employees will also more than likely follow along and be ethical. And then we also need to be supportive of them. So then we need to be ready, as board members, we need to be ready to do our work to make fully informed decisions. And that includes reading our materials before we arrive at the board table. And it's recommended that the board do a self-evaluation. MASB has this available. And we also do have that noted in we have a board operating procedures manual. And that actually in that says that we are supposed to do a self-evaluation. I don't know as we did one last year, but I would recommend that we do that this year when we do the superintendent's evaluation, that we look at ourselves at the same time. Also in this class, it was recommended that we do a quarterly review of the superintendent's goals to make sure that he's meeting his goals. And that way then it will make it easier when we do our year-end evaluation. And I know Pete keeps us updated on some things, but I don't know whether we do that formal evaluation or not. The instructor also asked us in this class to record one takeaway or goal that we personally received from this class. And my takeaway from this class was how important it is to make sure that we ask the right questions. And I felt that way personally, so that I can be mindful and be prepared so that I'm making the most informed decision that's for the best for our students, our community, and our staff. The other class I took was CBA 276, which was board and superintendent relations. The relationship between the school board and the superintendent is a real key element to successful school districts. So there's both some positive and negative elements of that relationship. And probably we know most of these, but the positive things would be to have an open communication, able to listen, the ability to compromise, to be fair and firm, honest, ethical, and to have some trust there. The negative things would be to have no open dialogue, have either board or superintendent that would be a renegade, people that were lying, or somebody that came in just with a personal agenda and that's all they wanted to do. So the most successful formula is an atmosphere of collaboration, cooperation, mutual support, and some communication. So an important item is to have a strategic plan, which is good that we have such a thing. And then our goals need to be based upon that strategic plan. And then have some progress on organizational planning at our board meetings. And then these were important elements to make sure that we remember that as board members, we're here to govern and the superintendent is here to manage. So some of the most important tasks that we as school board members are supposed to do is to develop policy, to select the superintendent and work with that person, and then the financial leadership of the district. Some of our specific goals or roles are supposed to be goal setting policy, designating and evaluating the superintendent, approving the budget, looking at the goal over the long term, and then reviewing curriculum for staffing, appraisal of facilities, and community relations. The superintendent's most important tasks are being the instructional leader for the district, following the district's goals, being inspirational, manage the tone, having good communication with union and others, mentorship, enforcement of policy. We get to set it, he has to enforce it. Managing teams, reporting and working with the board, and he's the face of the district to the community. And some of his specific roles that he's supposed to have and details that he needs to have, he needs to make sure that he has trust. He sets the expectations, he follows the board policies, and he uses those policies for decision making. He's transparent, and he's also then prepared. He keeps us as board members up to date. He communicates, hopefully weekly, and that he knows the board members so that he knows what each of us needs and make sure that he shares information appropriately. This class also emphasized the importance of the board needing to do our homework. So being prepared, asking questions, and that communication is so very important. My key takeaway from this class was that the characteristics of the relationship between the board and the superintendent, and then all those specific roles, that we really need to watch that to make sure that we're each doing what we're supposed to do. Otherwise, it's kind of dicey. The next class I took was CBA 303, Overseeing the Superintendent. The person that did this class said that there are currently more searches going on right now than there's been in a long time for superintendents, because a lot of superintendents are moving around, retiring. They then discussed with us how superintendent positions are filled, and then they reviewed tips to retain a superintendent, and then they reminded us that the board is the #1 reason why superintendents change jobs. So as a board, we need to make sure that we're a high functioning board and that we have good communication between us and the superintendent. In this class, they also mentioned that quarterly check-in is a really good thing to do to monitor the progress of the goals between the superintendent and the board, and then it helps for that year-end evaluation. Also make sure that you're staying on the right path and not getting off whack. And then they mentioned the evaluation requirements that and I think we probably all know these things as already, that the board meeting for that is an open session unless the superintendent requests a closed session, which normally the superintendent would. All board members are supposed to be trained on the evaluation process, and that training for that evaluation can be done remotely, and monthly the MASB has that training. And so that was one item from this class that I thought we probably needed to review, because I'm not sure that we all have been trained on the process. I looked at my transcripts and I think that I had half the training, because I think right before I came, the school board had done the first training piece, and I don't know if we sat in on that, but weren't, like if Simone and I sat in on that, but weren't actually officially board members yet. So I'm not sure how that goes. So we may want to look at that piece.
It's a good idea. Yep.
That we're, obviously we don't want to be out of compliance with some of those kind of things, because there are hefty fines if you do some of those kind of things improperly. The next class I took was CBA 226, Exercising Political Judgment. And this class, the instructor was really, really good. And Simone, it's the same instructor that you and I had when we took our CBA 101 when we went to Washtenaw, so you know how much information that she had. So then sharing that kind of information over Zoom was really interesting, but I don't know if she had done a Zoom class before or not, but she did a very nice job doing that. But therefore, there was so much information, and she loves to share like where she got it from. She'll make sure that all of her, quotes and references and all those kind of things are all up to date, and all the books are still in print, and that there's nothing out of whack and all those kind of things. But therefore, it was kind of hard to summarize all of that in just a short thing. So I'm not even going to attempt it. I'm just going to tell you that this class was basically, the goal of it was to look at a complex problem. And then she gave us some different strategies to develop solutions and decisions. And some of her information has been shared in the MASB Leadership Magazine, which I was listening to some podcasts over the weekend, and well, actually YouTube videos, because they now have some of the MASB stuff on YouTube videos, that the Leadership Magazine is now digital. So I'm pretty lax in reading that. So I don't know about the rest of you, how up to date you are on that, but we may want to look at some of that kind of stuff, because this instructor is really good. So Deb Mason is her name. So I'll share that with you in an email. And then the last class, I think this was the last class, was CBA 298. This was the fun one, dealing with difficult people. So this class was also taught by the same person, I think I said that, as the political judgment class. So like I said, she does a wonderful job, shares lots of insight, but like the other class, it was hard to like squish this down into a short little snippet. So I'm just going to tell you basically what the class was meant for, and like the details we'll just have to look into later, and probably would be a good class for anybody to take. But she gave us some evaluation methods to determine like what kind of person that the difficult person is, all the different types of difficult people that there can be, and then suggestions on how to deal with them as a behavior of their problem and not as them personally, so that you get beyond the person and you just say, oh, they're that kind of person that they're either clam up or they won't stop talking, whichever it is, and then you'll know how to deal with them. And so she gave us some suggestions, but she also suggested that we do the board self-assessment to make sure that we're moving in the proper direction. So we should probably look into doing that. And the first piece of it is just doing a self-assessment, and that piece is free. And then they'll give us information back, and then we can determine if we want to move forward with any of their recommendations and do stuff like that. So that's the presentation from both of us. So we appreciate the rest of the board sending us. And I would also say that we should all look at continuing our education and doing those kind of things. We did get notification that the annual conference for MASB will be held all virtually this year. So the main conference piece that we would normally have to pay to go to, that part of the conference will be free. So we should sign up for that and go virtually. And the classes that I took, they did the breakout rooms so that we could go into smaller groups to talk and then come back to the big group to share. And so that was, very helpful. So I'm sure they'll do that kind of thing at the annual conference. Any classes that we would want to take that are the certified board member classes, the CBA classes, those classes, there still is a charge for those, but still, well worth the investment to become well-rounded board members and know what we're doing. So
Those classes are great to take, and again, it helps everybody kind of get new ideas and everybody to figure out what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. So I think it's always a good thing to go to those classes. So thank you for both for doing that.
Alrighty, so moving on. Our next item on the agenda is the return to school update, which is Mr. Goodluck.
That's me. All right. So I got to get to my right screen here. All right, I'll see it all right. All right. So this was based on our conversation at our last board meeting, talking about what we needed to do to be able to start school, make sure that we had everything ready to go. Plans were made, items were procured. We wanted to make sure that we were ready for the kids and the staff to enter the buildings, and on September 14th to be ready to go. So this is directed towards September 14th being our go day. All right, so these are the areas I'm going to be talking about. The PPE, cleaning supplies, signage, building plans, district plans, and staffing. So I'll each have their own slide. I'm going to hide my thing here. All right, so we have masks. Masks are in and shields are in. They are in the buildings. They were delivered today as far as masks were. Shields are coming soon. They're in the district. We also have gloves. We have many gloves. Some came in already. The rest will be in. The rest at some point this week is the estimated delivery date. Face shields, we have, I mentioned shields in the other one too. Those were the shields that were donated by Ford for us. We bought specific people, humanity shields are called. So if you want to look those up, they're pretty cool. They are scheduled to arrive this week and next week. There's two different orders coming in. We got actually some for students too. And we have some for certain teachers, elementary, and some special ed people as well. What's different about those are instead of the regular shields that are open at the bottom, they're all tight down here. So nothing can get in or out. So it helps. The other ones are not actual face coverings that are as good as masks. So these are. Then also plexiglass desk shields. So we have a lot up already at the main offices. They're all in. Other places that they're being deployed are media centers, food service, speech pathologists, places where they're in small group with kids. We even have some for certain classrooms as well, if where needed. If we couldn't spread out far enough, then there could be some between desks if we needed, or between tables. So we ordered a lot of those too. We have some sitting there just depending where we need them, but they're all in. Cleaning supplies. So hand sanitizer is all in stock. It's being deployed this week. We are waiting. So that's all going to be gone. We're going to be good to go on all that. We have pumps to pump out the hand sanitizer. So we have enough of all those. We are also, and we ordered, and they're not set to come in until September, October, the touch-free dispensers. So we have plenty of hand sanitizer, plenty of other dispensers with the pumps. We thought the touch-free would be better, so we're going to have the touch-free dispensers as well. So those are going to be coming in though a little bit later.
And Pete, just as a reminder on those touch-free ones, not that it won't be hard to get, but make sure we have batteries or whatever we need to run those.
Yeah, we're all set. Yep. General disinfectant, we have plenty of that in stock, ready to use. One thing I want to mention about all of this, all our cleaning supplies, they meet the EPA approval, and they're also on the N list, which is from the health department, that is approved for COVID-19. So all that is, everything we're buying is on both those lists. So we have plenty of that. Those are the pump sprays. We can put it actually a lot of different places in the general disinfectant. And one of those places we could put it is our electrostatic sprayers. So we've had some of these for a while now, maybe a couple of years. We had ones though previously you had to use a certain disinfectant. And it was hard to find that disinfectant because it only took one type and that was being hard to find. So we've actually bought different electrostatic sprayers that would take a whole bunch of different general disinfectants. So you can put it doesn't take just that one type. So the other one is very it was by the disinfectant was made by the company that made the sprayer. So this other one, you can use anything. So we have one for each building already, and we have a few more coming for the bigger buildings. But we are going to start the year with one in each building already. So they are going to be through the buildings on a very regular basis, disinfecting every night with those electrostatic sprayers. Wipes, we have plenty of wipes. Right now we have buckets. We have buckets for each classroom. So the way this works is if you're thinking about the little canister wipes that you might have at home or in your car, this is not those. So we have big buckets that we fill wipes in. The term that James uses is charge. So we charge them with disinfectant. I wanted to find a way to put that into the presentation. So we refill them. So we put the wipes in there, and then we put the disinfectant on top. So then there's they can pull them out through the top, just like their old ones, but they're just bigger containers. So we are deploying those this week as well. So I know the teachers are starting to come back in tomorrow, so they'll see this all being deployed this week. Hand washing stations, bottle filling stations, they're ordered and they're supposed to arrive this week. But the locations are all prepped. So the places where the bottle filling stations are going are ready to go. The bubblers is what actually put your mouth down on. Those are all covered and the water shut off for those. The hand washing stations are feeding right into the water lines there. So that's all ready to go. All we have to do is set them in place and hook them up. So they're ready to go. Those are just portable stations in obvious places where we need extra hand washing.
And those kind of things are in all the buildings?
Yes. Yep. Signage, it's all in. Started deploying it today already. So James and his team has met with the building principals to talk about where they wanted things marked. He had a whole bunch of stuff in place already. He ordered it when he could. And then they had some specific ideas depending on their building, arrival, dismissal, flow of their building that he has specific things ordered for that might be unique just to that building. But there's hallway markers that are already in here as far as which way to go. Things, hallways are being taped, striped, stairways are being marked. Just the safety reminders throughout the building are everywhere about washing your hands and wearing your mask and talking about germs. And tables in the common areas there's signages on those. Outside the buildings, as far as arrival, dismissal, stairways as well. So those are all started being deployed today. He met with everybody to talk about the flow of their building and their plan. And we know, some buildings have already switched their arrival and dismissal plans a couple times already. And as more teachers come in, and I know they're going to be talking about that some of the next 3 days, talking about some of those specific plans, those might get changed again. So we're flexible. We want to do what's best for kids. And after the first couple days of school, they might change again. So we want to make sure we get it right and do it the best. We don't want to put anything down that we're stuck with if it's not the best way to do it. Building plans. So as I kind of alluded to a second ago, they are finalizing the plans. They're sending them to me now. Again, we're waiting till after the staff comes in before anything's absolutely finalized because they're going to provide their insight. Many have already in their leadership teams. We want to make sure we run it by everybody because if somebody comes up with a good idea, we don't want to dismiss it just because we've already finalized it. Those things are lunches, how they're going to flow, arrival, dismissal, passing time. You're going to be staggering those middle school and high school. Recesses, how that's going to function. They're going to have zones out in the playground, how many classes at a time, where they're going to be in the playground. They might switch some of those things around. And as well as all the administrators have had a lot of time to talk to each other on these things too, to pass along some good ideas. Latchkey, if they have latchkey in their building, how that's going to play out. And clubs, if they're a building with clubs. They're going to have them, how are they functioning, how are they going to do their remote aspect to those clubs, remote student access to those clubs. So a lot of different pieces moving with those. But the buildings are all on those. They've been sharing with me ideas and thoughts and sharing with each other as well. So they're just waiting. They're presenting them to the staff this week and then going to send them to me to finalizing next week. District plans, things that we're working on. Transportation, as you know, you had to register for transportation this week or this year. Registration's done. They're still going to trickle in, as you know, but they're working on the routes right now. They had the routes pre-built already. They're looking to see how that worked with the registrations. Food service, a couple things they're still working on is the remote pickup. So those students that are remote, we still are going to provide lunch for. So they're working that out. They want to do it daily. They want to do a sign up. So if you're interested in getting a lunch, you have to sign up the night before to get it for the next day, so they know to make you lunch. They're going to do a pickup as well. It'll probably be just here at the high school. Work also the food service with the conjunction with the building principal, working on the in-person lines, how the flow is going to be, how are they going to get through people quickly, how many lunches are going to be, those kind of things, hours of our staff, those type of things. So they're working on some of the details. Some of that is waiting on, depending on what the building plan is for lunch. So the food service department is going to finalize that. The daily health questionnaire, I did put Andy Lindsay Genius here, because Andy Lindsay's a genius. He came up with some wonderful ideas for us. He solved a very difficult problem where we had all these parents filling out questionnaires each day, and they were going to come to the office, and the office was somehow going to figure out which people didn't fill it out and which people filled it out with a response that warranted an action. So if they said, yes, my child does have symptoms, and that child's in school, we need to know about that. And if they didn't fill it out, we need to know about that as well, because as we mentioned, if people are not going to comply with our health questionnaires or other rules being in school, they can't stay in person, so we need to keep that area safe. So they're going to have to be remote learning at that point. So Andy came up with a way through Google Forms that he is able to do a quick sort, send it to different people in the different buildings, the office staff in each building. They will be able to sort it out very quickly to see which students have not completed it, see if any of those kids are in the building. Also look for anybody who checked yes on any of those questions that we don't want them to check yes for. And if they did check yes, make sure they're not in the building. If they did check yes, make sure we contact them to figure out what's going on. So Andy did that. It's going to be just a couple clicks, saved the office staff hours. So thank you, Andy. Flow charts. So we keep saying flow charts just because that's how I picture it. This is a process that we're going to have for students and have staff who have had a positive test or who have been in close contact with somebody with a positive test. Those are done. Those are going to be shared with staff. The idea is that it is so if somebody tests positive in the building, the health department, I know we've talked about this a bunch of times, but the health department is contacted. They go back and find out who has been in close contact. They do contact tracing. We figure out who's been in close contact. Those people are notified. We notified the whole school population. And then the people who are in close contact also have to quarantine for 14 days. But this is a nice quick view that says, okay, we start here. Yes, if yes, then go here. If no, then go here. And we just kind of go through the whole thing. And there's one for staff and for students. So that's pretty easy. And those things will change based on health department recommendations. So again, right now it's 14 days off for either of those two things. If it comes back saying all you need is a negative test again, and that's the new rule, then we'll throw that back in. Quarantine rooms. So we're working, they've all been identified, working on training staff who's going to be working in the quarantine rooms as far as gear that they have to wear, also what they need to do with those flow charts where they fall into that, how to stay safe. Building hours for staff. This is something that's going to be different because our custodial staff needs to be in the building and cleaning the buildings. They have to know after they've cleaned it, it is now done for the night. So what we're doing is the staff will be 2 hours after dismissal is when the staff will have to be out of the buildings or done in their room because we need to clean all the rooms and we don't want to go back. If a teacher stays late, we'd have to go back and clean that one room. So we want to make sure we don't clean a room twice. So it'll be 2 hours after dismissal. Athletics, this is a big one. We are following MHSAA. I've mentioned that a few times. Our league could say that we're doing something different than MHSAA as far as being more strict. So Joe Brody and his other ADs in our conference are having those discussions. MHSAA is kind of all over the place right now. They've already said football now is going to be in the spring. They did say cross country, tennis, and golf are on. So we actually have a cross country meet this Friday. I'm not sure if we've had tennis or golf yet. They are still not yet decided on soccer, volleyball, or swimming. And they're all practicing like they're going to go on because they don't know any different. They're supposed to have an answer pretty soon for those. I know we have games coming up on all three of those and matches or whatever swimming calls them. I'm sure they're not games, meets. So we'll have to have them, as soon as we know from MHSA what they're deciding on those, we'll follow their lead. Staffing. So we've done a lot of this the last couple of weeks. So the remote, we notified most of the people on Friday. We finished that up today a little bit. The in-person, we did finish today. So we kind of put people in, make sure they're in the right buildings. In our head, we put them in grades, but we assign them buildings and the principals assign them grades. So the high school is still working through scheduling. Middle school is still working through scheduling a little bit too, but the middle school does know that they have 2 full teams that are doing remote. At the K6 level, we have 28 teachers who are doing remote. So there's 4 at each grade level doing remote. So that got our sizes. So just numbers, a quick look at numbers. In person, as of this morning, we had 1,632 in-person people. And remote, we had 2,447. That's almost exactly 60% want remote. It's 59.9 something. So that's 60% remote. In-person breakdown, I know some people have been asking about the breakdown for in-person, where those kids are. Are they equally distributed? Pretty close. We still have a lot of kindergartners. Our kindergarten numbers are really low, so we think some kindergarten students are still going to check in with us. But overall, we have 513 students that are K4, 176 at Owen, 224 at McBride, 670 at the high school. Those are the in-person numbers. So the staff has been with those, with the K6, 4 teachers in each grade level taken out. That makes the class sizes in person between, and this is even through the high school, about 15 to 20-ish throughout. Some are a little bit lower, might get to be 20, 21 at the high school here or there. We did, as you know, recall 4 teachers due to the low in-person numbers. It was just the numbers where they came were at such a place where you couldn't, they were very small for 2. So we ended up having to, we know we're going to get a few more people, especially at a couple schools that are going to be coming in late, wanting in person. So we left a little bit of room for them, and especially kindergarten. We know we're going to get kindergarten people coming in, even because if you had our kindergarten remote and in person, it's really low. So we know we're going to get some more kindergarten too. So we left a little space for them. All right, and custodial, we've had 1 hired. We have some interviews that are scheduled. That's the update. Any questions on any of that before I unshare my screen?
I had one question through the chair, please. Pete, the room, the quarantine room, does that have to get a different type of cleaning than the other rooms? Like, does it get a deep clean, or does it get the same cleaning that the classrooms get? It'll
definitely get the electrostatic cleaner every night.
Okay, so it'll be cleaned differently.
It'll definitely get that. It'll get attention. Yes, and again, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Pete, I know initially we had talked about some kids, possibly elementary kids, having to go to a school that's not their home school, or possibly staff having to move to another school that's not the school that they taught at last year. Is any of that happening, or are the numbers working out where that's not going to have to happen?
That is happening. Good question, Amy. So I think, I don't have the sheet in front of me, but I think it's 4 staff are being moved. At 4 K4 staff. It's only K4, and the same thing with kids, because that's the only one that we have buildings at the same grade level. So there's 4 staff, I believe, that are going to be moved, and there could be some students. We're still waiting a little bit on that. We haven't notified. We're probably waiting until the end of this week, beginning of next week, to determine that for sure. We're waiting for a few numbers to shake out before we decide that. But in one building in particular, it looks like there's some upper elementary kids that need to be moved to another elementary school. And not very many, probably 6 at each.
Okay.
6 fourth
Okay,
graders.
great.
Not very many. And that's so far just at one building. It looks like that's an issue. Any other questions?
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Are the students who are doing remote learning going to be able to do sports, Or are we
Yes.
assuming because they won't come to school for fear of COVID that they won't want to do sports either?
They're allowed to do sports if they so choose. So are our boss students.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else?
When you're done with, or maybe you are already done with moving the teachers around and final numbers at the schools and stuff, can you send us that information so
Like
we know
which teachers have been moved?
Yeah, which teachers have been moved and how many teachers from each grade are remote versus in person, and then how many kids are in each school?
Yep.
Just in case those numbers change.
Yep, I can do all that.
Okay.
Probably like the beginning of next weekish. I want to make
Oh,
sure firm a couple things up, but that's a good idea. I will make sure I send that to you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yep.
Zoe.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just want to make one comment. It's not really a question, but I really appreciate, obviously, continuing everybody's hard work on this. It's a huge undertaking, but I especially wanted to say that I appreciate you putting some of the building-specific decisions in the hands of those building leaders, because they know their people, their staff. They also know their kids. They know what will work best in their own buildings for moving kids in and out. I know it puts more pressure on them and more work on them right now, but I also think we'll come up with the best possible plan when we let those building leaders create some of their own plans in terms of student movement and stuff like that. So I'm glad
And I think
we're doing it
that's
that way.
Thank you. And I think it's really important because they know the key members of their staff that know the ins and outs of how different things work. And I've used this example when I did staff meetings at each of the buildings, and I think I probably said this 3 or 4 times in different groups, but when I was a principal in Plymouth Canton at Field Elementary, Mrs. Sabata knew arrival and dismissal. She was a parapro, and she knew arrival and dismissal procedures. She ran the show for arrival and dismissal. And if this would have happened at that point while I was principal there, she would have been the person that I've went to say, okay, how does the arrival and dismissal need to work now? Because she would have had it all figured out and drawn on a map and handed out in triplicate to everybody. And she was the person that would have done all that. And so I know each of those buildings have those people. And for me to sit here trying to make a decision of how they're going to do arrival and dismissal when I don't know how it functions like they do is not a wise decision on my part. So I think they're going to get input from their staff. And that's why nothing's, as I went through that, it wasn't finalized. It'd be nice to tell you today they're all done. I don't think that's best practice when the staff haven't reported to work yet. So.
And they report tomorrow?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Next agenda item is other. Anybody have any other? Okay. Then looks like we have a few more questions that have popped up in the Q&A.
All right, so we have Heather Akers, parent of a 2nd grader at Rawsonville. Just a basic question, will kids be allowed to keep a water bottle with them daily or only at lunch? I'm not sure what Rawsonville, usually they keep water bottles with them, so I assume they'll just be able to keep doing that. So, since the bubblers aren't going to be working, they're going to have a water bottle fill station. But, Mrs. Mears, when will the bus schedules be finalized regarding soccer games? Regarding soccer games, will the games be rescheduled or just dropped if soccer ends up being a go from HSAA? I will find those answers and get back to you. Mrs. Mears, regarding soccer games, will the games be rescheduled, just dropped? Same question. So I will find out that answer. And again, for Ms. Mears, when will the bus schedule be expected? So I think she put 2 in 1 and then she broke them out. So I will get those answered to you. I'm not sure the answers to that. I don't. Oh, there's one more down here, Mrs. Haddad. In regards to remote learning, when will we find out our teacher orientation information? I will email that to you. I'll find that out and email that to you. And I know we just are finalizing the, like I said, we just picked the teachers. We finalized that today. We notified a lot of them Friday. So from now here, we'll probably start putting the class list together based on which students go with which teacher. And then at that point, there'll be some sort of the orientation piece we talked about. So staff can learn, or parents and students can learn about the platform. So I'll find out that answer though. Oh, we have a couple more. Natalie Turner. When will we receive communication from buildings regarding remote learning details? That's probably the same question Mrs. Haddad had. I think I just answered that. So I would guess in the next couple weeks. So we'll get that. I'm sure we'll be starting putting those together as far as class lists. Mrs. Watkins, when should high school teachers expect to hear if they're teaching virtually or in person? I will get back to you, Mrs. Watkins. I know pretty soon. We just met with Mrs. Burrow today, and she's hoping to she's finalizing the in-person first, so then she knows how many sections she has free to be able to allow, or for staff to soak those up through remote. So still a part of the process. So I know the counselors are going to be working on all the rest of this week, so hopefully soon. But I'll get that answer to you, Ms. Watkins. All right.
A lot of pieces.
Pardon me?
I said there's a lot of moving pieces, so.
Absolutely.
With that high school schedule, trying to get it.
They're basically doing two different schedules, which is hard enough doing one of those, but they're doing for the in-person and managing those, making sure the class sizes are low enough so we can social distance best we can, while allowing enough, if they're too low, then we don't have enough extra, but then we don't have any staff to put as remote. So we have to make sure there's a balance there, and you can't do them at the same time. So they're doing one, and then you have to kind of trial and error it. See, this is where the numbers are at. Let's see how many remote teachers we have now to teach those classes. Is that good enough, or do we have to raise the class size up a little bit? Freed up a couple sections now, and then we're doing it that way. We've been working really a lot with RISA. So scheduling at the high school on a normal year is crazy in my head as an elementary person. Right now they're doing yeoman's work.
So I was going to say, it's not the same as you're a ninth grader. Here's your schedule.
Not quite that easy.
No, there's way too many options, which is wonderful that we give our students all those options so they can do what's best for them. But it does make it difficult then when you try to schedule and to make sure that all the rooms are free and that all the people are in the right spot. It's, interesting options. So, got a couple more questions.
Oh, yeah. All right. Mrs. Tibbs. All right. She's one of our teachers and a community member. Please explain last-minute notices to staff. How was that configured? Numbers were supposed to be on a Monday, August 17th. I'm a teacher in a district. I also had 3 children in district. My twin daughters attend Rawsonville with me, and I just received a phone call today that I'll be moved to another building. That's fine if that's what needed, but what about my kids? Now what for them? What's in their best interest? I either uproot them for another school or what? Very concerned and upset about the late notice. So again, we did the staffing on Friday and today. We had numbers. All the numbers weren't in on Monday. So as of Monday, we're over 4,000 now. As of Monday, we weren't anywhere near that number. So a lot of the staff members, including at Rawsonville, were calling families to try to make sure that so we had volunteer teachers coming in. We had people just come all over, secretaries come in, principals come in. They were all just calling these families to try to make sure if they made a selection. So we wanted to make sure we gave people the option. So we gave it a couple extra days. We wouldn't have done that if we were starting school on our original date, but when we had those extra, school doesn't start for 3 weeks from today. So that's why we waited another couple days. So I will get back to her with some of those other questions. Ms. Slingerland, when will we know our schedule? She's a high school teacher. I know many are worried about properly prepared. We're going to have those as soon as possible. I think I've talked about that. So we're going to get those as soon as possible with high school schedules. They're working on it. All right, I think that's all of them.
Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you did miss one from Mrs. Mears that was kind of caught in the middle of things.
Okay.
Are in person. If they end up being moved to remote, will there be a virtual orientation, or should they participate in the orientation that with the people who signed up for remote.
Person, they end up being moved to remote. So we're not moving them to remote. So if she moves them to remote, there'll be a virtual orientation she will do at that time. Yep. But I'll make sure I email her. All right. Thank you for catching that, Karen. All right. I think we're set with those. I think we can move ahead. Susan, you're on mute, I think.
Sorry.
It's okay.
There was noise happening in my background, and I went like, oh, I better mute. But then I forgot that I muted. All right. So thank you, everyone. We will get back to all of those answers, just like we would at a normal in-person meeting, that we aren't always able to answer all those questions right at the meeting, but we will take those all under advisement and have Mr. Kudlak or one of his staff get back with everybody with answers. And if there are things that are pertinent for this time period for everyone to know because of the process that we're doing, the return to learning, then they'll be put on the Q&A on our website. So, all right, now on to cabinet member reports. So, I don't know how Amy usually does this. She just picks somebody that looks
Good.
like.
I think she goes in order so she doesn't miss anybody.
Do a cabinet report. I know. Then people pop up.
Everybody's like, nobody makes eye contact. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just go in the order on my screen. Whoever I start at the top and
that's what I was going to do. So on my screen, Karen's right next to me. So Karen, you get to go.
Oh, I get to be the lucky one. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I have been spending the last several weeks playing with spreadsheets and learning how to do pivot tables, actually. But I have been in charge
You're
of...
welcome.
Thank you. I am the one who's getting all the responses from parents in terms of whether they're choosing remote and in person, and then giving out the information to everybody else in the district. So that has taken up a lot of time sorting through and making sure that we're getting what we need from for the kids so they can return to school. Along with that, I'm also going through and making sure we're working with the special ed staff, trying to figure out how we're going to best service all of our students in a remote setting and in an in-person setting, and trying to figure out staffing for that also. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
There's plenty of things. All right, so next on my list is Mr. Moore on my picture.
Just a couple things. Karen, I can attest to the work that Karen's doing with that. There's a lot of work, and it's very menial work. So thank you, Karen, because a lot of that stuff that's being done you don't see behind the scenes, but it's just a ton of work, and she's put a lot of time into it. So she's,
as we mentioned
downplaying. Yeah, she's downplaying how much time she spent on it. She spent a lot of time on it. So thank you, Karen.
One thing, you've answered some of the other questions, probably in our frequently asked questions too, that is says, it's an IEP and the I is individual. And, so what does that mean for my individual that's doing remote learning or whatever? Karen. So she's been doing a lot of that with her building staff too, trying to make sure they get what's best for each kid.
Yeah.
And also just keeping track of all those students and parents that are filling in those forms, kind of like even our Q&A tonight, that sometimes technology, like you press enter and it doesn't work the first time, and so you press enter again, so then your kid might get entered twice, and they might we
didn't have any of that.
Maybe they spelled their name wrong, and so then they did it again to fix it because they couldn't figure out how to do it. And so then Karen's got 3 kids that are really only 2 kids or whatever. So yeah.
And then after that, then they changed their mind.
Yes. So yes. So thank you very much, Karen. You are very well appreciated.
Yeah, there were a few times when Karen was doing some things, and not that I never don't want to do work, but there were a few times where I'm like, I'm glad. I'm not. There are some challenges with that. So thanks, Karen. The second piece, Mr. Kulak alluded to it earlier. Tomorrow's our opening day. PD, we have a series of 3 days of PD kicking off this week. Stephanie Halliday, Jason Strakowski, and all of our presenters over the next few days. Thank you very much. It's very difficult generally to plan a PD, but with so many questions and unknowns that are happening and curveballs, it's a challenge. So thank you to all those people that have worked to get that set up. We also are offering, because of the schedule change, we're also offering for our staff next week optional PD days as well on September 1st, September 2nd, and September 3rd as well. And so there's a lot of planning that goes into those events. So that's about it right now.
Okay, thank you.
He downplayed that as well, just so you know.
All right, our next picture up is Mr. Madyoun. And you gotta take yourself off mute. There you go.
Yep. Just like everyone, I mean, a lot of our life right now has been staffing, trying to make sure that we have the right balance of remote and in-person learning, making sure we have the proper staffing for that, talking to our union about any potential issues, and just trying to be proactive and talking to them a lot. I think a lot of people don't understand how much communication there actually is between the district and our union to make sure that we're trying to, we're trying to be proactive and make sure that we see a potential issue, that we talk it out before it becomes a big issue. So a lot of that has been going on for the last couple of weeks. Just make sure this happens correct. That's it for us.
All right, thank you. And then my next picture in line is Ms. Cortese.
All right, so I have been working with Karen Waller, who's in charge of our food service group, and Elizabeth, who's in charge of our transportation, on the return plans that Pete kind of mentioned earlier. Karen and I actually walked into the high school today to try to figure out our best plan for the remote learner pickup, just to see what logistically would work best for us. We're thinking possibly using the parent loop that already goes to the athletic wing and having parents pick up at the double doors there, having our lunch ladies in between the double doors to greet parents to pick them up there. We're kind of tossing that around still, making sure logistics will work out with that, but we're checking that out. And then, at the risk of sounding redundant, the whole finance department is still working on audit, because that takes up our entire summer. That's all we do all summer. So that's what we've been doing.
And you have fun with it too, right?
Loads of fun.
If you didn't love the audit, you wouldn't have gone into this field.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah, she says.
Like our biggest thing of the year.
Had plenty of foresight of what it was going to be like from years of growing up with it. So
this is true. I'm well experienced with it.
Don't talk to mom in the summer.
No. My kids have learned that. They're like, can't you do something? No, it's audit time. You have to just go play with daddy.
Hey, Sarah, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Have we received any updates from the state as to where they are in their budget process? That's
sort
a
of
terrible
ish.
question to ask, I know.
We did today.
Or are we? Do we have any updates?
Pete got an idea from someone, but he can't tell me exactly who he got the idea from.
I got sources.
So I don't know. These are questionable sources, maybe, but
Shady behind the back alley stuff. No, we actually today they just had the revenue consensus meetings today.
Yes.
So they came out and the revenue from the state is well above what they projected back in May. So they don't think the hit is going to be as bad as they thought in May. They didn't come up with an expected dollar amount yet, but they figured that the projections moving forward are much better and not quite as good as they were in January before COVID. or before we got hit with COVID. But it's not quite that good, but it is pretty good over the next 3 years. They projected over 3 years, and it's looking pretty good for this year, and they're projecting next couple to have a pretty good rebound as well. So that was good.
Truly, our 1920 also didn't get cut as bad as what we had originally projected either, because
Right.
we projected for a $550 per pupil loss, and we only got cut like 170 something.
77, I think. Yep.
Well, I hope it's true, because that's really positive news, which we could use a little bit of right now. So
Yes.
I hope your back alley sources are.
They're pretty good.
I hope it's true. Yeah. Thanks for the update.
The one downside is, though, we're not going to know the actual number until probably mid-September. So we're not going to know anything till we're already hitting the ground running. And at that point, we as we've said 100 times, we have to buy the PPE, we have to buy the cleaning supplies, we have to do all that regardless of where the budget comes in, because we need to do that. If we're going to have in-person school, we have to make sure we're keeping everybody safe. So all that's being spent. We are doing also remote, so we have more computers coming in. So we had to be able to do that, just because if we're going to offer it, we have to do it right. So there are pieces of things already had to be spent. So whatever comes in above what we budgeted for will be definitely welcome.
It'll be interesting to see how they handle count day.
So that's been decided too.
And it's messy.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's what I was
formula
wondering,
is
because
horrible.
Yeah.
potentially we would have a much higher count, because really nobody should really be absent. I mean, none of the remote people should hopefully be absent.
Well, the absent kids we get to count anyway. That's always been kind of a fallacy in the community.
Okay.
So as long as they come within 30 days, we basically get to count them. So if they're absent more than 30 straight days, then we don't necessarily get to count them. But so we are going to be doing that. It is a little bit different how they're counting this year. So they, a lot of we were all lobbying our legislators to say, we're all concerned that a lot of the numbers this year are going to be lower than previous years and lower than next year. This is going to be a dip because people are going to keep their kids home, not doing our remote, just do homeschooling, just doing whatever. Not sending their kindergartners, because kindergarten is not mandatory in Michigan, so we think that might happen. So everybody was concerned about that. So what they ended up doing was this year is only going to count for 25% of the count. Last year's count is going to be 75%. So this year won't hurt us quite as bad. So we're looking at that'll help us a little bit.
That seems fair.
Yep. So my turn, Susan? So I've kind of been taken over anyway.
Sorry, I just thought you were just taking over. I'll
All
introduce
right.
you formally though now. Now you can do your thing.
All right, thank you, Susan. So first of all, even though this wasn't first, but first we did have Dan Fisher Sr. passed away this morning. A lot of you know him. He's a longtime employee, longtime supporter of our school district, longtime friend of our school district. So many, many prayers. We have his sons worked for us, but all the prayers go out to the many, many family members and friends that he has all over this community, because I'm sure they're grieving right now. So that was a big loss to our community. Enhancement millage is something that passed 4 years ago. They're renewing it this November 2020, so you're going to start hearing a little bit about that in the community. After school starts, we're going to start sending some flyers out. This is the county-wide millage. So this is something that it has to pass. It passes or fails as a county as a whole. So individual districts don't pass it or fail. We voted on it a while ago to put it, and we thought it'd be a good idea for the county to put it on the ballot. They had enough support from the school districts in Wayne County, so it's going to be back on the ballot again. It brings in about, 1.6 million. It's going to be a little bit less in the renewal because the charter schools are also counted this time. 1.6 million. Things that we've done with it recently is our ROTC program at the high school. Some of the McBride 2.0 stuff that they changed. That was one of the early expenditures on it. 1-to-1, 5th through 12th grade. the computers, Chromebooks for our students. Our district resource nurse, which we employed last year to start out with, and that was a great, hindsight, 2020 there. I don't know how that just happened to work out, but she's been great through this whole thing, and she's paid through that. Discovery Learning, our PD that we've been doing to help our teachers learn to teach with technology. Robotics, it's supported through that. A lot of different things get supported through that budget, and there's a lot more. So as we start putting the flyers together, you'll read a better example of what's on that. But that's coming this November. It's going to be on the ballot. It's countywide enhancement millage. Return to Learn. The law is Amy mentioned how they're going to do count day. So last week, it was Friday, they came out, I think it was Friday or Thursday, they came out with a Return to Learn plan that was signed into law. Some things that were, I think it was earlier in the week actually, some things that were a problem with it is they keep changing the rules to the game as we're playing the game. So this is not necessarily new for Lansing and school districts, but we're coming up with, they give us one set of rules, we come up with these plans that got approved. I read like 51 pages a couple weeks ago to you all, and everybody was, to those of you who stayed awake through that, I applaud you. But that was the rules then, and now they kind of changed some of the rules. And so moving forward, we have to kind of twist that a little bit, and it has to get approved monthly, a new plan of how we're going to educate our kids in our district. And there's a lot of other things too. So they change the rules as you go, and we as schools just have to go along with it because they hold our money. And that's just kind of how the world works in school districts. And we're just thankful they give us money and we jump through other hoops. So that's more things that we have to do for this. And I know that is something that impacts you little, but it's a whole bunch of behind the scenes work that has to get done. Instead of us doing the real work that we need to do about teaching and learning in our district, we have to jump through these compliance hoops for the state. And it just takes up time and energy for everybody. As you know, we had one of our athletes test positive for COVID-19. So we had that, they were all notified, teammates, anybody that was in close contact was notified from the health department. We haven't had anybody else test positive. That was a while ago, so that's good news. They did shut down practices till after Labor Day, just to be cautious that it was football, so they're not playing till spring anyway. So. All right, and that's, we did talk about one thing for the rest of you in the policy committee. We've been using Neola policies for a few years. Before I got here, we were using Neola policies. That's the company that we get our policies from. Troon, who's our attorneys, they also do policies. They started this policy game probably about 3 years ago. So they've been developing policies. The people who use them are very happy with their policies. It seems to make sense that the people who are defending us and our policies would be the people who write them. So there's a nice connection with them. We like the work they've been doing. So we've been considering switching to Troon for our policies. It's about the same cost as Neola. The first years, there's always a little bit more cost because you have to get them going and adopt them, and then ongoing costs are all the same. So we're looking to switch. We think it'd be a better, cleaner way just to have a clean break and switch some of our policies to Troon. So you might hear more about that soon.
So Pete, for that, I know we talked about that at policy, but I didn't look up to see if there's some kind of policy about changing that kind of thing. But that
There's
would
not.
be a service.
That is a service.
So therefore,
Does not have to get voted on.
yeah, okay. So you could just tell us this is what we're doing, and
Yep, the policy committee all thought it would be a good idea to switch,
yes.
taking their recommendations, and we're looking at moving forward with switching to Troon for our policies.
I personally thought it was a good idea, so I'm all for that. Okay. Do you have anything else too, or was that?
That's all I have.
All right.
If anybody has any questions?
I have cut you off while you were saying that. I do have one question.
One question for Pete. Oh,
Oh,
sorry, Susan. You go ahead, and then I'll ask my question.
okay. I don't remember for the enhancement millage, you know, because like there's some rules like that as the school district, things that we're allowed to do or not allowed to do. And so will you remind us of all those kind of things?
I can do that right now. So that is money that we can do whatever we want with.
Oh, I didn't mean that. I meant
No strings.
that we can say to people, yes, go vote yes on the enhancement millage.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying. So things that we can say and we can't say as board members.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes.
So I'm
yes.
Employees.
Right.
Yes. So yes, I will. I'll remind you of all those. I'll send a document to you all. It's something you can inform, you can encourage.
Okay. All right.
Or discourage, either, for that matter.
Okay. All right. Because some things we can do
privately.
Personally.
Yep.
Yes. But as a full board, we have to remember which things that we can't do, and then as a district, and so yeah.
Yep.
So if you
could be on a yes committee if you wanted. You could be. You
can give us that list. That would be helpful.
I will make sure we do that. You got that, Debbie, or Sean Garland, whatever you're being called today.
Yes. I know no one can tell behind the scenes. What we
It's really Debbie. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, Amy, you can go ahead.
Thanks. So I read an article yesterday in the New York Times. It was about different rules, or even less than rules, how different districts are handling reporting cases to their communities as schools are getting ramped up. And it was everything from, there are districts, some districts down south that are prohibiting staff from speaking to anyone about any positive case in their building. And then there are some who are obviously not posting names, but posting numbers on their district websites of, you know, whatever that may be. Do we have any rules that we have to abide by as far as publicly reporting any cases that might arise in our district as we start the year?
Yes, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that up. That's something we need to get to our staff members, because we have, you know, HIPAA in particular is a rule that we would be able, we can't talk about, you'd have information as a teacher theoretically that, you know, Johnny tested positive. And if you start talking about Johnny testing positive, you're breaking his rights, his health information rights, the Privacy Act. So that would be, you could get in big trouble for that as an individual. So we want to make sure that they have that information, you're right. So we have to make sure what the do's and don'ts of that. What we will do as a staff, as a building is, and I think I've mentioned this before, maybe last time when I read those 51 pages. So you all might not remember this part. But I will, as a building, we will say, okay, that we will email the whole McBride Middle School and say, so somebody tested positive at McBride. If your child has been in close contact with that person, the health department and we will be in contact with you to inform you individually. So at that point, everybody knows, and then they should be looking a little bit closer for symptoms, because there was a positive case in the school. So be looking a little bit more closely for symptoms for their students. But if they if their child was in close contact with that person, they will be contacted separately, and at that point, they will have to self-quarantine for 14 days. But yes, that's how we're going to notify.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have any other questions? All right, now items of business from the members of the board. So I'll do the same thing. I'll go around to whoever's picture I see first. So Simone, do you have anything that you want to share or tell us?
I do. I just want to say that thank you for everybody who's doing so much work behind the scenes, and that teachers and staff and parents and kids have patience, because it is gonna, I'm sure will be hiccups getting it started, but once the routine starts, it'll be easier for everybody. But you just have to do the best you can for everybody, and these people who have put in so much work, stand behind them because it's going to take time to get it up and running. But once it does, I think it'll go pretty well. Thank you.
Thanks. Ms. Garrick? She's got to find her mute button.
Yeah, I was clicking my name instead of the mute button. Couple things. Food truck rally drive through this Thursday, 4 to 8, I believe. No on-site eating, just get your wonderful stuff and take it home. They're also, for the rest of the farmer markets, the class of 21 is collecting bottles for a bottle drive as a fundraiser. And I believe they'll be collecting at the food rally too. You can drop off if you want to bring bottles to that.
Okay, I'm sorry. So say that slower. So you're some ways collecting
Bottles. The class of 21 is at the food, the farmers market.
Oh.
And they're collecting. They've got, I think, 2 truckloads already tonight that was dropped up there. People bringing bottles for the class.
You'll do it at the food rally.
Yes.
Okay, so there'll be a spot well marked. Can drop them off. Okay, all right. Much better than standing in line.
Yeah. Yes. Also, often on Facebook you see have a fundraiser for your birthday kind of thing. This year I kind of glanced at it, and the Van Buren Education Foundation was one that was listed, and I decided to, oh, what the heck, I'll give it a try, and it was $344 raised.
Wow.
So I contacted Tabitha, and I'm like, please make sure, that you see, it said 45 days and they'd receive it. So just to make sure they get it. But I had people not even in this state send some. I had one from Canada, and I had former teachers. So I was quite impressed with that. So if you're having a birthday and you're on Facebook, you can select the Van Buren Education Foundation. That's a great cause.
Sounds good. All right, Mr. Johnston.
I just want to echo what Pete said about Mr. Fisher. Just a great guy, retired teacher, coach, friend. I'm going to miss seeing him down there on the football fields on Friday nights. I'm missing him on the basketball courts over in the corner. He's sure going to be missed. He made a big impact on our community, and going to miss him. That's all.
Thank you. You're right. Anybody that's a pillar like that to our community, it's difficult to have them gone. So, Ms. Owen.
Yeah, I wanted to say Miss Ashley, she was a teacher at Haggerty before she went to Tyler, and all 3 of my kids had her, and she is going to be greatly missed. We're going to miss having her around. And also, I want to say same thing that was said earlier about everyone in the, behind the scenes, and all of the staff and everyone working so diligently on this, and to spend your summer doing this. Thank you very much for all of your hard work. It's greatly appreciated. And I'm sure that there will be times it won't feel like that, but we do. We appreciate you. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Kelly.
All right. And then Ms. Pierce, I don't know if you want to talk while you're driving or.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick things. The Drumline coaches posted a really awesome video on YouTube this week.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, you can search for it. I think I reposted it and made it public. So
on YouTube?
Although we're not going to have, yes, it's on YouTube. If you search for Belleville, it should come up. It's under Joelle Laginus's page.
We'll get it on our Facebook too. It's really great.
Yeah,
okay.
That would be great. It made me so happy this week. The loss of the marching band season, at least for the fall, I know is a huge loss for at least roughly 300 of our students, which is a large part of our high school and the way that the high school comes together on Friday nights, along with our football team. I know that the loss of that whole season this fall is huge, and this just brought a little glint of hope. The coaches, including Joel Laginus and Caleb Kennedy and some of our other alumni, they have been working all summer with these kids, and they kept working even when they knew there wasn't going to be a marching band season. They still have been out there in the heat practicing, and the video is just really awesome, and it made me so happy. So I urge you to check it out. And then I just wanted to piggyback on something that Susan said during her MASB class presentation, which was about, the school board's role and relationship with the superintendent. And I know I've said this to Pete privately, but I just want to say publicly that I have appreciated so greatly the open communication that he and I have had over the past few months, well, really since March. I have been blowing up his phone and in his ear so much more than I normally would be in the course of a year. When you first become a school board member and you go to initial training through the MASB, they really teach you to stay in your lane and remind you, like Susan said, that your role is to govern, not to manage. And I just really want to let Pete know publicly how much I appreciate him answering my questions at all hours of the night, answering my texts so quickly, still sounding cheery when he picks up the phone when I call, even if he's rolling his eyes and I can't see it, that's all right. But we have both kind of been in these roles that are a little off for where we normally would be. And I just really appreciate the relationship that we have and the open communication through all of this. And I look forward to the day when he doesn't have to get a call from me every day asking him a million questions. So thank you, Pete, and your whole team for putting up with me. And that's it.
No problem. It's different times right now. We all understand this is not the normal.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yes. Yeah, and that is what needs to be done too, is to thank Pete for all of that and his whole staff, because then Amy, after you've called Pete, then Pete goes to all of the staff and then says, hey, you guys got to help me do this.
That's right.
So they need to be the ones that are appreciated too, because all of the things that they reported upon that
it just gets passed through me. That's it.
He manages
right.
and then does that. Like, I'm sure all of them are doing things that they never imagined that they would be doing now. Like Karen working on a pivot table. She's probably going like, yeah, like I did not want to be doing a pivot table. So yeah, so there are some of those kind of things. So so we do want to, as everyone has already said, thank everybody for all of their hard work. That obviously, if you weren't doing all those kind of things, the district would be falling apart, and we don't want that to happen. We need to have the best education possible for our kids, and that starts with everyone putting all the plans together, doing all the things. And some of the stuff, like we said in previous meetings, there's going to be some things that we're just not going to know. We are trying to do the best with the information that we have available to us right now. Some of the things, even the doctors and other people don't know what's happening. So we're just going out there and doing the best that we can with the information that we have, and want to get the education out there for our kids, because that is our role and the most important thing that we need to do. If we don't educate kids, we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So we need to pull all that together to do that. So, and I already gave my update by telling you what I've been doing, spending all those hours. And I went like, okay, the one thing about doing those type of classes virtually versus in person, you don't get the, the fun lunches. you don't get to have those extra conversations with the people from other school districts so that you can hear what they're doing. I mean, we did have kind of like our breakout groups and do those kind of things, but we missed out on those. And then, of course, we missed out on those cookies during the breaks in the afternoon. So those kind of fun things. All right. Does anybody have any agenda items that need to be included in our next meeting? If you do, you can let Pete or Ms. Pierce know that you want those included on the agenda. All right, I don't see anybody, you know, like raising their hands that they want to do that. All right, then the next thing on our list is adjournment. So we need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, thank you, Ms. Pinder, and a support.
Support.
Right.
Lots of support.
Yeah, there's lots of support for that. All right. We have a motion by Ms. Pinder and a support by Ms. Garrick to adjourn our meeting. Ms. Garrick, you want to take our roll call?
Ms. Owen.
Here.
Yes.
Well, it's actually our vote.
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Ms. Pierce.
Here. Oh, just kidding. Yes.
Ms. Pinter.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Featheringill.
It's hard, you know, it's a roll call, and so it seems like it should be a here, but it really is a vote. So I vote yes that we should adjourn and be out of here, because obviously we've been on this Zoom for way too long.
Ms. Garrick, yes. Mr. Johnston.
Yes.
All right, I think that was everybody. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you being here, and thank you, Mrs. Pierce, for driving safely, and we hope you make it home soon.